Plants play an important role in the stability and sustenance of our ecosystem. They are the foundation on which the building of biosphere rests. While they feed every living organism on the planet Earth, they themselves are autotrophs, consuming only water, some minerals, and carbon dioxide. In return, they produce aesthetically pleasing environment, lovely flowers, enormous amount of food, wood for fire and shelter, and convert toxic carbon dioxide into oxygen, making breathing for living organisms possible. The conversion of carbon dioxide by green plants into oxygen and other organic matter takes place through a process called photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis literally means the synthesis of food materials in presence of light. However, it's a very complex process wherein plants are able to synthesize their own food material, and that synthesis also facilitates production of oxygen, which facilitates survival of all other living entities on the planet Earth.
During the process, the light energy is converted into chemical energy and is stored in the form of organic matter, usually the carbohydrates and oxygen, which form the end products. While the oxygen gas is released in the atmosphere, the carbohydrates are stored in the form of glucose. One molecule of glucose contains 686 kilocalories of energy. The glucose is consumed by the plants for its growth and made available to us in the form of stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, or seeds. Besides maintaining a proper equilibrium of oxygen in the atmosphere, the process of photosynthesis provides us food either directly as vegetables, fruits, etc., or indirectly in the form of meat or milk of animals, who in turn feed on plants. Photosynthesis also indirectly provides us vast reserves of energy in the form of fuels such as coal, oil, peat, wood, and cow dung. Photosynthesis in plants takes place in what is termed as photosynthesis apparatus. The photosynthetic apparatus in green plants consists of chloroplasts. The chloroplasts are distributed in leaves of higher plants. In lower plants, they are distributed in the whole body or thallus of the plant. Chloroplasts are responsible for different colors of plants or plant leaves, and this color is mostly green. Though at times, the plants assume a different color depending upon the absorption of light. The number of chloroplasts per cell of a leaf or thallus varies from 1 to many, ranging in size from 4 to 6 nanometers in length and 1 to 2 nanometers in thickness. Each chloroplast is typically either discoid or ellipsoid. Each chloroplast is bound by 2-unit membrane, which surrounds a hydrophilic matrix called stroma, in which is embedded grana. Grana is the site that holds photosynthetic pigments. Grana, in fact, is the storehouse of photosynthetic pigments. Photosynthetic pigments are basically of 3 types: chlorophylls, carotenoids, and phycobilins. Chlorophylls are green pigments which determine the color of the leaves of a plant. They also determine the color variation of plants on the basis of their concentration as well as type. The higher the concentration of chlorophylls, the darker the color of leaves or thallus. Chlorophylls are further divided into subtypes. Carotenoids are colored pigments, yellow or orange, and their color reflects variation in color of different plants. Carotenoids are again of two types. Carotenes and xanthophylls, also known as carotenols, are mostly found in algae and higher plants, but the concentration of pigments vary. Phycobilins are red and blue pigments, mostly found in blue-green and red algae. They are of three types: phycoerythrins, phycocyanins, and allophycocyanins are found in blue-green and red algae, but the concentration of pigments again vary. Photosynthetic pigments, be they chlorophylls, carotenoids, or phycobilins, absorb light energy and thus begin the process of photosynthesis. The chief source of light energy for photosynthesis is sun. The earth receives only about 40% of total solar energy. The rest is either absorbed by the atmosphere or is scattered into space.
All the incident light that falls on planet Earth is not absorbed by living entities. Most of it is reflected back, and only a part of it, estimated to be around 1%, is absorbed by plants, which utilize it for photosynthesizing their food materials. Most of the light that is reflected back is actually absorbed by all the entities that are actually surviving in the atmosphere above the earth. The plants are able to utilize the absorbed light to synthesize food material, which in turn also facilitates the survival of human beings because it helps in releasing oxygen for the survival of living entities.
Photosynthetic pigments absorb light energy only in the visible part of the spectrum, that ranges from 390 nanometers to 760 nanometers and comprising 7 colors, including violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. However, certain photosynthetic bacteria use infrared light of comparatively shorter wavelengths.
The absorption of the light by plants is usually least in the green part of the spectrum. This is basically responsible for the green color of the majority of the plants. However, in some plants, the absorptive potential in different parts of the spectrum varies, and automatically that is responsible for variation in color of different plants.
The chlorophyll chiefly absorbs light in violet, blue, and red parts of the spectrum. The absorption peaks of different chlorophylls depend on chlorophyll types. Bacteriochlorophyll A and bacteriochlorophyll B absorb shorter wavelengths of infrared light that falls outside the visible spectrum. The carotenoids absorb light energy in blue, blue-green, and green parts of spectrum. Phycobilins absorb light in green, orange, and near red parts of the spectrum depending on the type of phycobilin.
Photosynthesis is a complex process where oxidation and reduction reactions take place, and for these reactions, essentiality of presence of light in first phase and presence or absence of life in the second phase of photosynthesis is important. That is why the process of photosynthesis is characterized into A, light reaction, and B, dark reaction.
Light reaction is the primary photochemical reaction, also known as Hill reaction, which takes place only in the presence of light in the grana portion of the chloroplast. The process follows a systematic pattern. After chloroplast pigments absorb light in different regions of the visible spectrum, they transfer the light energy to chlorophyll A. This happens only during the primary photochemical reaction. Chlorophyll A can also absorb the light energy directly.
light actually is responsible for initiating the photosynthetic mechanism, wherein chlorophyll A becomes excited, and this excited chlorophyll A is able to donate an electron, which in turn facilitates the completion of the light reaction. This excited electron is responsible for transmitting its energy via chlorophyll A, so that the transmitted energy in turn is able to facilitate the light reaction as a whole. This light reaction is responsible for initiating the subsequent phases of photosynthesis, which are later on completed in the dark phase of the reaction.
The hydroxy ions unite to form some water molecules, oxygen gas, and release 4 electrons. The release of oxygen in the atmosphere is reflective of the pattern of using tree shade as the best space during days.
The excited electron in the light reaction is responsible for initiating the synthesis of energy in the form of ATP and NADPH, which are the two basic energy resources of the light reaction. The synthesis of these is actually initiated by the acceptance of light, and at the end of the light reaction, these two molecules, that is ATP and NADPH, are synthesized, which in turn govern the dark phase of the reaction.
The net result of light reaction is conversion of light energy into chemical energy as ATP and NADPH. They are biochemical energy sources of living entities and are referred to as assimilatory power. This assimilatory power is used in dark reaction of photosynthesis in reducing carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. The dark reaction of photosynthesis, also known as Blackman's reaction, is purely enzymatic and much slower than the light reaction. It takes place in stroma portion of chloroplast and is independent of light. That is, it can occur either in presence or in absence of light, subjected to the availability of assimilatory power. That is, NADPH and ATP synthesized during the light reaction. The conversion of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates with the help of assimilatory power proceeds in a cyclic manner, where each conversion is controlled and governed by specific enzymes localized in stroma portion of chloroplast. The cyclic pattern in a majority of plants has been analyzed by Calvin and his co-workers and given a cyclic pattern known as Calvin cycle or dark reaction.
Second part of the photosynthesis is known as dark reaction, which can take place either in presence of light or in absence of light. During this phase, the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is accepted by ribulose 1-diphosphate, which is already available in the cells, and this in turn gets converted into 3-phosphoglyceric acid in presence of a specific enzyme known as carboxydismutase. This phosphoglyceric acid in turn gets converted into phosphoglyceraldehyde, and for this conversion, the presence of a specific enzyme known as triose phosphate dehydrogenase is a must. And during this conversion, the nutrients in the form of ATP and NADPH are already available, and this in turn helps in the synthesis of fructose 1,6-diphosphate, and this fructose 1,6-diphosphate automatically in turn gets converted into fructose 6-phosphate and ultimately gives us the basic product, that is sucrose, that is referred to as the end product of photosynthesis. However, during this cycle we have the resynthesis of the ribulose 1,5-diphosphate, which is in turn governed by specific enzymes which are available in the cells, and automatically these enzymes govern each conversion so that the cyclic pattern of Calvin cycle is maintained in the cells of the plants. It has been seen that during this synthesis of glucose as well as resynthesis of the first product, that is ribulose 1,5-diphosphate, there is a necessary requirement of specific nutrient, that is in the form of ATP and NADPH, and essentially 18 ATP molecules and 12 NADPH molecules are necessary, and these are in turn synthesized during the light phase of photosynthesis, so that these two phases, that is the light phase as well as the dark phase, actually facilitate the completion of the cyclic manner of the synthesis of the basic product, that is sucrose. In the plants, the synthesis of sucrose is governed by collaborative activities of dark and light reactions of photosynthesis.
The hexose or fructose thus produced is utilized by the plants for their growth and accumulated for the nutritional needs of human beings in the form of fruits, etc. Photosynthesis thus is not merely a process for the growth of plants, but is essential for our very existence. It does not only provide us food, but also oxygen, without which our life would be impossible.